Enlightenment in Western Europe, two components of that. This is like a little history course. The non-English speaking part of this, French and German speakers mostly, they were the utopianists, the socialists, the Karl Marx people and his associates and their like-minded thinkers. And you had the English-speaking side of the Age of Enlightenment, which were the Adam Smith free market enterprise, free enterprise people who had a tradition of and descended the Roman rule of law, which was implanted on Old English common law, that flowed through with free enterprise capitalism, and all of that, thankfully, God's blessing on America, that they arrived at Plymouth Rock 390 years ago, 1620, if I remember right, and therefore religious freedom, they established free enterprise in a land that had unlimited natural resources as far as their imagination was concerned, no taxes or low taxes, and no regulation. And we didn't need a lot of law because the Christian faith arrived with the Mayflower, and it became the culture of America. Now, we see in our Bill of Rights some of the pillars of American exceptionalism. We see freedom of speech, religion, and the press, freedom of assembly, the right to keep and bear arms, property rights that up until the Kelo decision were clearly delineated, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Now, I think that will one day be also the law of the land again. The right to be protected against double jeopardy, a jury of your peers, the list goes on. States' rights, those things are all components of American exceptionalism. But you have to add to that things that aren't written, such as free enterprise capitalism. It doesn't say that in the Constitution, but it is the culture and the habit and the tradition of America. And in fact, it's on the flashcards. If you want to be naturalized as an American citizen, you have to answer that question right. Free enterprise capitalism, the Christian core of our faith and our foundation, which is the moral standard and the character of the culture and the civilization that we are. All of that came together like a giant petri dish in a magnificent time in history that turned this American civilization into this robust civilization. Oh, one more component I left out, and that is the United States of America has skimmed the cream of the crop off of every donor civilization in the world. Legal immigrants that came here had a dream. And the filter of, it's hard to get here, you have to save some money, you might have to become an indentured servant for 7 years to come to America, but when you came to America, you had an opportunity then to excel and achieve this American dream. So that unique vitality, which I describe as the cream of the crop of every donor civilization, added to all the other components of this giant petri dish of American exceptionalism, but just everything came together perfectly at a time in history, and remember again, the dawn of the industrial civilization. And we had manifest destiny. We were going to settle this continent from sea to shining sea, and we did. We were a civilization that believed in ourselves. And as this unfolded about the Revolutionary War period of time, the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, just think what happens 125 years later, we begin to become a global power. We go to the Philippines in 1898. Oh, by the way, the second engagement we had was in Tripoli, back at the Revolutionary War period of time. We first engaged the French buccaneers in the Caribbean, and then we went to remember the Marine Hem, from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli? We had to go twice there because the first treaty, you couldn't trust those guys over there. We whipped them the first time and cut a deal, and they went back on it and attacked our merchant marine. So we went back again to Tripoli and occupied Tripoli and said, now this time we're really serious. We're going to have less mercy the third time, so let there not be a third time. But in any case, we have always reached around the globe. By 1898, the Spanish-American War, we're in the Philippines. And and by the way, the Philippines are very grateful that we went there. President Arroyo has spoken publicly about how grateful she is that the United States Marines went to the Philippines in 1898. She forgot about the Army. I don't know why. They were there too. And but as global power that we are, a century and let's say more than a century and a decade ago, we went through World War I, where we understood that we were an influence in global power. In World War II, we became a preeminent world power. We were the only industrialized power in the world that had our industry undamaged and undestroyed by the Second World War. And then we went through 45 years of the Cold War, defeated the Soviet Union in the Cold War, and what happens to us? We suffer a crisis of self-confidence. A crisis of self-confidence in the United States of America with a history like this. What would we be if we were the French or some other country? We'd be curled up in a global fetal position, begging mercy of anybody that might want to come and borrow our Bordeaux. We're Americans, and we're apologizing for being Americans. What is wrong with us? We're the unchallenged greatest nation in the world. We derive our strength from Christianity, free enterprise capitalism, and Western civilization. And that confidence that should come from that needs to be projected, not diminished. And we have a president who apologizes for being an American. He's apologized to every continent that he's set foot on.
Shame.
Bill Clinton's apologized for every continent. He apologized to continents too. Remember, he traipsed around the globe. Oh, here's Africa. I think I'll apologize to you, Africa. We should not apologize for the greatness of this country. Maybe a little anecdote I could tell you about our culture, and I'm really fine with Judeo-Christianity as a label on our values and on our faith and the core of this culture of civilization. But a couple of years ago, I noticed that they were bringing resolutions through Congress to honor Ramadan and the 4 Indian religions, and I can name the Hindus and probably none of the others. And so this all went on. The world's religions had all been honored by special resolutions brought before Congress without dissent. Everybody voted that. So I thought, how do we leave out Christianity? Yes. So I drafted a resolution to honor Christ at Christmas, and you would think that I had committed some kind of a sin. But I had pushed that resolution, pushed it to the floor, we had our debate, and 9 members of Congress, all of whom voted for honoring Ramadan, voted against the Christian resolution before Christmas. And one of them was the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, John Conyers, from Michigan. And now, well, that's created a bunch of controversy. So Alan Colmes had me on his radio program. And I will tell you, he's a nasty guy. He's a nasty guy. And,
I don't know how Hannity put up with that guy.
How can you say America's a Christian nation? There's nothing in the Constitution that says we're a Christian nation. You're insulting all of these other religions. And as Alan, I don't know what you are or how you would define yourself, but I will tell you, if you're any kind of a man, you'll conduct yourself in a Christian fashion, because it's not part of your faith, it's part of our culture. Well, how can that be? I said, well, here's an example. Alan, if you go driving home tonight and you turn in your driveway, and let's just say the neighbor's dog gets out, runs underneath your front tire, and you kill your neighbor's dog. You run over your neighbor's dog and kill your dog. If you're any kind of a man, the first thing you'll do is you'll go knock on your neighbor's door, and he'll come to the door, he'll open it, and you'll say, Sam, I just killed your dog. Alan, that's called confession. And then you'll say, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Alan, that's called repentance. The third thing you'll say is, please forgive me. Alan, we know what that is. You beg for forgiveness, and do you know what your neighbor's going to say? If he's any kind of a man at all, he's going to say, Alan, you didn't mean to. You've asked forgiveness. I forgive you. It wasn't your fault. Alan, that's called redemption. And so it is our culture. Even the atheists conduct themselves in a Christian fashion most of the time. And why would we apologize then for such a thing that offers such redemption for all of us? And I'm not here to give the sermon necessarily. Brian will do that a lot better than I can. But I'll just tell you, it's part of who we are as a people. And so is our national defense and our military component. And so is our free enterprise capitalism. And when we get away from those things that are the pillars of American exceptionalism, and we watch the left take that jackhammer daily to those beautiful marble pillars of American exceptionalism and chisel them away, they have a different American dream than we have. Oh, yeah. They are undermining those pillars of American exceptionalism, those things that make us great. And we need to refurbish those beautiful marble pillars of American exceptionalism. And when Ronald Reagan said the shining city on the hill, I'll argue that yes, we may have actually achieved that in the Reagan era, but there is another level of America's destiny. There's another level up that we need to go. We need to take America to the next level of our destiny, and how do we do that? Refurbish the pillars of American exceptionalism, reconnect ourselves with those things that made this America great, and 2 components that I would propose And I'll tell you that, you know, we need to do this from family to family, church to church, faith to faith, individual to individual, neighborhood to neighborhood. It's got to be regrown from the grassroots down and up again. But if I can do a couple of things at the national level that I'd ask Todd to do with me, I would do this. First, I'd pass the fair tax, because the fair tax does this. All of the things good that you can imagine that anybody's good tax reform policy does, it does them all. It does them all better. And by the way, that's not my opinion. That's the opinion of Alan Greenspan, who I asked to put me through the paces shortly after he stepped down as chairman of the Fed. And he said, this is not an economic argument. Serious economists will not disagree with you. The fair tax does all of these things good that you said.